Thank you very much. Good to see my friend and former colleague. I too would like to weigh in on the Desmond inquiry and the recent study that was tabled. In December 2015, Corporal Lionel Desmond, he had his firearms license revoked because he had been arrested because of a domestic dispute with his wife. 5 months later, May 2016, it was reinstated, even though he was in the care, a federally funded care program. Through the inquiry, the staff had said at that particular time, Desmond had been mentally unstable. I guess my question is about communication chain, the chain of communication and the gaps, and as Senator Patterson referred to silos, it's the transition of the information from Veterans Affairs caseworkers to mental health workers to frontline.
Thank you, Senator.
Did you see that in your? Did you see that?
Madame la Ministre.
Merci.
Madame la Ministre.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente. Yeah. And thank you so much, Senator Cuzner, for that question. Once again, I'm going to reiterate the tragedy that happened in Upper Tracadie, Nova Scotia, is nothing short of a tragedy. And our heart really goes out to all the families and community members that have been impacted by this tragedy. As indicated, the judge that was in charge of the inquiry, published a large report, and there was 3 recommendations that were specific, if you will, to Veterans Affairs Canada. The first being that a case manager be assigned to veterans transitioning out of the Canadian Armed Forces. Number 2, to ensure that individuals diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder or other health issues be provided a copy of their health records to be ingested into the Nova Scotia records. And finally, to improve the transfer of health records into each other's record database. So we certainly recognize that sharing of information, sharing of health records has certainly been flagged with respect to the inquest in the inquiry. And again, my department is doing a deep dive with respect to these recommendations and looking forward in the next weeks to come in order to provide more details with respect to that. I also want to add that shortly after the document was launched, or the inquiry report was launched, I also reached out to the province of Nova Scotia because, again, I think there is recommendations on both ends, on behalf of Veterans Affairs, but also on behalf of the province of Nova Scotia. We want to ensure that we do all that we can to prevent any such tragedy from happening again.
Merci, Madame la Ministre. Senator Cuzner.
Thank you very much, and I apologize. I was being scolded by the Speaker. Madam Minister, Recommendation 12, it states that they want to ensure frontline professionals in multiple systems, such as the health and mental health, education professionals, social services, people in the justice system are up to date, especially on current information with intimate partner violence, and that will, developing risk assessments and risk plans going forward. I guess the study would have brought all this to light, but there must have been discussions within the department about these gaps in this information. Were there steps being taken prior to that? Sorry again, Madam Speaker.
Madame la Ministre.
So once again, thank you so much, Senator Cuzner. I see that you, I'll just, with respect to, With respect to your question, first and foremost, I think I first of all want to be very clear that during the inquiry, we certainly followed the inquiry very, very closely. We did not wait for the results of the inquiry to come forward with the reports. As such, some changes have been made at Veterans Affairs Canada. One example, with respect to mental health services. But again, we certainly have to make sure that we do a deep dive with respect to these recommendations. Again, indicating we want to do all that we can in order to prevent this type of tragedy from happening. But sharing of information is certainly one of those areas that I think has been a key component with respect to the recommendations, and I think it's something that we're going to have to look at very closely.